Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Christopher Swing, seasoned executive driving innovation across logistics, banking, healthcare, and private equity. He is the president and CEO of Vantage Surgical Solutions. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Christopher. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about, understand from you, leadership secrets for business growth. In this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But before that, let's learn a bit more about you, about your background, about your journey, so that people learn from your journey itself.
Sure. So my name is Christopher Swing. I'm currently the president and CEO of Vantage Surgical Solutions. And I started off my childhood just as many others have. Lived in a small community, about 850 people total in our town. Went through high school. A teacher identified that I had some accounting skills and encouraged me to pursue that. And I did it with the idea that someday I would run businesses. I learned that from my parents when I was young. And I think the thing that is unique for me is that I'm very analytical. And so a risk-reward strategy is the primary strategy I think has made me successful through the years. I've had lots of roles in lots of different companies in lots of different industries, as was spoken before. But I would tell you that I didn't deserve many of those roles when I got them. Somebody took a chance on me. And so that's why I'm here today.
Right. That's very modest of you. Nobody gives anything, out of just think. They know that the person is capable. It's just that some people are a bit modest and so. But I want to understand about your success, across logistics, banking, healthcare, and private equity. And now Vantage Surgical Solutions looks like to be into healthcare only. So I want to understand this. Means what is that? You are very analytical. That's okay. But is that enough for success in all these things that you are doing?
So the only thing besides that I can point to is I read a lot and I love to learn. And nothing makes me prouder than when one of my team members comes with an idea that causes us to be better than we were before. And so I think because I've created a culture and a desire to have people to be successful around me, sometimes more successful than I am, we've really created an environment where the team members want to come to the organization with ideas, and they want to better their area of expertise. And together with that, I really do feel like that's a lot of what has enabled me in the different industries to be successful.
Right. And about leadership. And that brings me to the leadership part. Because a lot of businesses are not able to, achieve that level of business growth, which they should. The idea is good, the team is good, but the leadership is not. And that is where it also brings to this great resignation and quiet quitting very much on. Why is it that some leaders lose the plot? What is it that you have done well and what others can learn from you in terms of leadership with regards to especially business growth? The bigger ones as well, especially the small businesses also, Christopher.
So I think one of the things that we do that's a little bit different is we provide the appropriate level of transparency within the organization. And what I mean by that is, we don't tell the senior level staff the exact same thing as we tell the lowest level staff, but we try to give them a visualization of exactly where we're at. So when we have struggles, we talk about the fact that we're having struggles. At the senior level, we're very clear about what those struggles are and what we're trying to accomplish. And when we're talking to the entry level staff, we don't want to scare them, but we want them to understand that we're also dealing with struggles and that they can be part of that solution. And then the other thing that I think has really attributed to our success is our desire to change satisfied customers into advocates. And I think that's a little bit of a unique position. And to clarify what that means, at least in my mind, is a customer that says, "Oh, we're so happy to have you," right? That's great and that's super helpful. But what we're looking for a customer that says, "I want to tell somebody else about you, about what you're doing for me, because it's made such a difference that it's something that I would hope that they would benefit from as well."
Right, right, Christopher. So, in terms of, you see, when times are very good, everybody looks to be very successful. The CEO looks to be the brightest man or woman in the universe, and they are very proud of that. But when there is a bit of a difficult time, like the Great Resignation, like the COVID, and then everything started coming out into light. So, how should leadership prepare themselves for these tough times and not only, look bright only when the sun is shining bright on them or their venture? How did you do that for yourself? How can they do it as we are transitioning into a new phase in all aspects that what we are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you very well know, that it's really easy to be uh, positive when everything is going well. But the reality is that that's not when we make our money, right? We make our money when the wheels are falling off the bus and we're trying to keep everybody on the bus and calm. That's when we do our best work. And so if you're not prepared for those situations, I think so often there's a lot of people in roles like mine that never struggled. Like they just happened to be in the right positions at the right time and they moved through organizations and everything was great. I would love to tell you that that was my experience, but that's not my experience. My experience was that there were lots of times where things were tough and that we had to make really difficult decisions. COVID was one of those. Perfect example. We're in healthcare. So I had facilities that said, "Hey, we do not want to do cases. We're afraid of this, whatever." I had other facilities in the same country that are going, "If you don't show up, even if you're COVID positive, we will cancel your contract." And so that's a dramatic difference, even within the same realm and space. And the same is true of surgeons. So, some of the surgeons in the United States during COVID were just deathly afraid of COVID. And the other ones thought it was the biggest joke on earth. And so, you're trying to lead an organization through something. First of all, we have no idea the extent of it. We have no idea, especially in the beginning, how it was going to impact people. And it was a very tough time for us. To give you an idea, business wise, how tough that was in March through the 20th, I think is when we shut down in March. We had about 1.3 million in revenue. In April, we had $4,300 in revenue. So, when you have a 150 to $200,000 biweekly payroll, and you have zero coming in, like you have some significant concerns, some significant problems. Now, granted, the United States turned around and created a pretty insane program that enabled us to be whole and to not impact the businesses when we shut down. But we didn't know about that when we shut down. So what we did was we just were very transparent with our team. All we know is that this is something that's probably not going to go away quickly, because by then we knew that China was still struggling with it. And this was multiple months past the beginning. And we said, we're going to pay you 2 weeks in advance. We're going to put everybody on furlough and allow them to go get unemployment benefits through the federal government. We'll continue to pay all of your benefits, but we can't commit to that until we can come back up. And then as soon as we started to generate revenue, we brought everybody back.
Right. So during those times of, difficulty, how should leadership, should they forget about business growth and only think of survival? Uh, or is good leadership is about that you think about tomorrow today, and many leaders could not think it. So many layoffs that happened. Nobody was able to clearly tell whether to work from home, not work to home, go to their villages, and now people are talking about whether half 3 days office, 3 days home, copy badging and all those things that have come up. I want to get your insight because you have a understanding of so many sectors: logistics, banking, healthcare, and also private equity?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'll just tell you my perspective. My perspective is I did the execution of the daily activities. You know, most CEOs will tell you that I shouldn't be involved in anything related to execution, right? But the two things that I can tell you were for sure our employees were scared and didn't know what was going on, and our customers were scared and didn't know what was going on. So what we did that's that we believe is a little bit different, especially because we operate in 25 different states in the United States. We spent time every day calling staff members, having conversations about them, telling them what we know, telling them what we don't know, being very transparent to say, we would love to be able to tell you that this is over next week. We would love to be able to tell you that, that there's nobody that's having that's dying from from COVID. We would love to be able to tell you exactly how to protect yourself. But those things aren't available at this time. Or if they are, we can't agree on it because one group is saying one thing and another group is saying something completely different. So, in my opinion, I think to answer your question is, you know, I was thinking about the long term. The long term was whenever this ends, I need to have customers and I need to have employees, right? And so what I would argue, some would say, is we were executing by making those telephone calls every single day, talking to a portion. And so what we did was all of the C-suite would have a list and we would just rotate through who we were calling. So we were constantly being in communication with everyone. I think our job at that point was to keep the wheels on the bus. Whether you say that as, looking forward and trying to I would say that we weren't growing the business at that point, but I do know this: like those customers and those employees that were here with us, like they remember it. When I have something happen in one of those facilities, those people are like, "Oh, I know him." Like when everybody else was freaking out, he was taking the time to call me to make sure that I was okay and that my family was okay and that they had they have whatever they need, and that we could ask them what they knew about what was going on and we could tell them what we knew. So I would say yes, I still was looking very much forward, but it was doing the grind, right, of things that maybe people wouldn't do otherwise.
Okay, let me ask it this way. What is business growth dependent on when times are very good? What is business growth dependent on when times are not so good? If we take example of COVID or any other difficult time,
Yeah,
is it the
so
same thing or is it the different? Is it different things?
So I will tell you that business growth when times are good is really easy, right? All we do is we do exactly what we say we're going to do, and if you do that, and you don't have people uh, suggesting that you're going to do more than what you're really going to do, and you represent yourself well, and you have integrity as an organization, and you fulfill your expectations that you create for yourself, in good times, it's really easy to grow a business. If you have a good solution, if you have a good product, you can't fix. To your point earlier, if you have a bad idea, that's really difficult to overcome. It's really hard to have a bad idea that grows. But we're in an organization that's existed for 30 years, and so from this, or even from the banking sector, those organizations had strong needs. We were still meeting the needs of the customers. Some of the customers didn't really need us, but as far as when it gets hard, when times are tough, what's really critical is that your customers and your employees, your stakeholders, even your shareholders, or anybody that is reliant upon you, they need to know that when the going gets tough, that you guys are still gonna to work through it, that you're gonna show up when you're supposed to, that you're doing everything you can, not only to protect your people, but protect their people, and that they trust you as a partner, somebody that's really looking out for their best interest. And so what that means is, like, for instance, let's say that one of my clients came back up and they need to do 10 cases, surgical cases in a day. but they could only get together 5 because everybody was afraid to come. We were still willing to come and to help them out during that period of time and saying, normally this would be important to us. We just want to make sure that, we start moving the world forward again. And so contractually, where we can bend and be a partner to our communities, we do that. And I think that's the difference in a tough economy, or in a tough environment like a pandemic. But people really, I think your integrity and your culture and what you really stand for comes out when the times are tough. That's when people are either made or broken, in my opinion.
Right, right. So if we look at it, if you can look into the future, if you look at the present
Yeah.
way business challenges one has in different industries, can you look into the future and say 3 years time we will have these sort of challenges and that we need to start preparing for tomorrow now? For
So
example, the
yeah.
AI. A lot of
Mm.
people are talking about AI. Are there other things that one, as a leader, as an individual also, for looking for better career, how should they look at the future?
So I've went to a couple of conferences that was put on by some of the guys in Silicon Valley. So those are what I would call industry disruptors, right? Those are people who are trying to come up with a way to basically eradicate complete industries. So, like, think of it from a cataract perspective. Uh, in cataracts, everyone gets a cataract. Right now, that's just a natural aging of the body. So we do a significant percentage of all people's eyes when they're over 65, they have a cataract. Now, there's other things like trauma and diabetes that can cause those. But when you think about what they're trying to do in Silicon Valley as a disruptor, they're not trying to figure out a way to do cataracts better. They're trying to eradicate the cataract in itself. So what they're thinking about is, okay, how do I give a human a vitamin that causes that part of their body not to age like it normally does? And so when I think of concerns and real world situations that could really disrupt us as a business, I'm not as concerned about the steps that organizations or industries take to move forward and us being left in the dust. I'm more concerned about what companies are out there that have the ability to really disrupt our industry as a whole. And that's true. If you think about it, all of my sectors are being chased by those industries. So, like banking, right? There are tons of fintech companies constantly looking for the new, better way to do what it is that banks do. And to be honest, in some cases, they're better at being a supportive banker to a person than what the banks are. I don't know about you, but around me, banks are open during the workday. Well, guess what times I'm at work? During the workday. And so, you go to the bank and you're like, oh, I need to meet with somebody. And they're like, okay, we'll come here between 9 and 5. And I'm like, well, I work from 7 to 5. So that's going to be a difficult thing to do. Um, Whereas fintech, that doesn't ever shut off. Right. And so I think the same is true for insurance. I think one of these days, we're going to figure out that there's a whole lot better way to do insurance where you don't need companies with 50,000 employees in order to underwrite auto and homeowners and liability insurance. I think that will disappear. When you think about cataracts, perfect example is I met with an inventor from Silicon Valley in one of those conferences, and one of the things he was talking about was about trying to minimize the spread of malaria in Africa. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What are you doing?" He goes, "We're shooting mosquitoes out of the air with lasers." And I said, "Oh, interesting." I said, "So what do? You just identify a mosquito and zap it?" And he's like, "No, we actually identify the mosquito, determine how fast it's flapping its wings, and if it's flapping its wings at this rate, it's a female, and if it's flapping its wings at this rate, it's a male. And we only shoot the females because they're the only ones that carry the malaria. And we only do it during rainy season because that's when the malaria is spreading. And I was like, wow. So I guess I could see how somebody could completely upend the idea of cataracts using technology when, first of all, I had no idea that mosquitoes flap their wings at different rates based upon whether they're male or female. Secondly, I had no idea which one carried malaria. And thirdly, they're using weather models that are basically predicting these things in advance so they can have those systems ready to go when rainy season comes. That's a whole lot of logic that goes into a process that I can't visualize, as a business person. But then I started to think about how simple a cataract is, and I'm like, if they can do what they just talked about, then they can figure out a way to eradicate cataracts.
Right. So leadership needs to do a lot of thinking. And amidst all these things, where leadership needs to understand everything, we are talking about fractional everything.
Yeah.
Fractional CTO, fractional CMO, fractional CEO. Is it actually going to help them, or is it that, listen, I have not succeeded, so I will get the best brains because they are coming cheap, we cannot get, that's the logic, and then you get it. How do you look at it as an entrepreneur, as someone who knows things?
As you know, it's all in the person, right? You can hire someone 5 hours a week, you can hire someone 1,000,000 hours a week. And if they're the wrong person, it's going to provide you zero value. You're going to chase after things that are completely not beneficial. But that's true of a leadership team. You need to think about these. I actually like the idea of partial or fractional CFOs, fractional CEOs. I think it's a great strategy for the right person. So I think someone who needs another layer of strategy, or like, let's say you're a solopreneur. I don't know if you guys use that term in India a lot, but we do in the United States. And a solopreneur is literally, they have nobody to bounce any of their ideas off of. And so if you're a solopreneur and you lack financial expertise, then having a fractional CFO is a great strategy, or having a mentor that has some financial mind behind them is a great strategy. I also like the idea of building out a board, and I think that does a similar thing. So, if you have a board of directors, or if you don't, go find those roles that you need people, and maybe you meet once a quarter, or you meet once a month, and you talk about what's going on as an organization, and maybe they're more advisory in function, and so they're telling you, hey, here's what you should be doing on your marketing strategy. Here's what you should be doing on your financial strategy. Here's what you should be doing on your just corporate strategy. Because I think so often, um, especially in the small organizations, or those who are operating by themselves, they're wearing so many hats. How do I know how much time to prioritize to strategy? How do I know how much time I should be looking at my books, and what do my books actually say? When I look at my financials, is it good or is it bad? Just because you make money doesn't mean it's good, right? I mean, and just because you lose money doesn't mean it's bad. I think that's where that fractional thing comes in, and I would encourage people to be creative in ways to get those people, but you need to make sure that they align with what your core values are. They need to understand what you're trying to accomplish as an organization. And you need to make sure that you don't just pick the one that's the cheapest, or the one that, it's easy to talk, especially in a short period of time. I mean, if you think about it, even the most uncontrolled, ineffective person can sound intelligent for an hour. And you've experienced this through this podcast stuff, right? So like, you can go out and have an amazing show with someone who really doesn't know anything about anything, and then and so somebody could pick them up and say, oh, well, you should come and help me and develop my strategy of my business. And that business person is like, wow, I got them in here and they don't know anything about what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and they sounded super intelligent. And I think that's where you have to be willing to try these people out, make sure that they're going to make a difference in your organization, and make sure they're not leading you down some crazy path that's not helping you get closer to your goals. If you don't start with the end in mind, then you don't know if those decisions get you closer to your goals or further away. And I think that's the best advice I can give you when you're dealing with fractional. And I love that strategy. I hope people embrace that. And I think it can really take those good ideas that don't have enough manpower behind them to really become effective, to become a mainstream solution.
Right, right, Christopher. So for those people, especially those people who are starting into business, those startups, the people
Yeah.
who have the vision that looking at the future, how do they become the best effective leaders that can, take their organizations themselves and perhaps a wider number of people into the future?
Well, let me start by saying God bless you, because those people are what make the world different. That those are the people that make the step changes in our lives. Like, if you think about the crazy things that we use today that we never would have in the past. I remember the first time I used an Uber, I was like, "Oh my goodness, what is this? And how nice is it that I know that a car is actually coming to pick me up?" Because, I remember the times where we used to call the number on the cab, and you know
Right,
that you'd be like, "Hey, come pick me up at this time." And then you're like, "Man, I sure hope they actually send somebody," because as we've all experienced, sometimes they don't. But anyways, I think the best way to answer your question is, uh, you've got to stay committed, and you need to have a group of people around you that know what you're trying to accomplish and that can have really hard conversations about it. One thing that I know about entrepreneurs, the one thing I know about inventors, the one thing I know about people trying to bring a unique skill set to market, or a unique solution, is that process takes a long time, and everybody believes they're an overnight success, right? All of us are like, "Oh my gosh, all of a sudden Uber was here." Well, yeah, but it was like 10 years in the making that it eventually, became mainstream. Um, that is a hard road to hoe. They need to have lots of resources. They need to have lots of support behind them. But they really need, more than anything, to have a lot of advisors, a lot of people that can say, "I know that you love this idea, and I'm sure at some point this may make sense for the world. But is the timing right? Is the market ready for this solution?" A perfect example is, look at self-driving cars. We're getting closer and closer to the technology where it can provide it. Elon Musk would tell you that his cars are safer than the average person driving, but the regulators, the people in general, can't get over this idea of, "Oh my gosh, the car's going to drive me." And it's like, well, look at the hundreds of millions of miles that it's driven people, and look at how many less accidents it has. Yes, it will still kill people, right? There's still a problem where there's a possibility of an issue. And when that happens, everybody gets excited. But how many people driving their car died that same day? I mean, that's where I think we kind of missed the boat. So I think the best advice I can give is, if you truly believe in something, you've got to chase it. I mean, those are the guys that make the world different. But you also need to have people in your corner, and you need to be willing to listen to them when every single advisor that you have says it's not the right time. It doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It just means that the world is not ready for that yet. And I think you need to be willing to listen to them and figure out, those organizations burn a lot of cash. They have to have tons of resources. So you need to not only have the ability to survive long enough to actually get it to market and to make it something, but you have to have tons of money behind it, or people willing to invest in you. I go back to Amazon, right? Like, Amazon was a company that they regularly interviewed Jeff Bezos, and one of the questions that they had for him was, "Okay, so how much money are you making right now?" And he's like, "Oh, we're losing billions of dollars." And they're like, okay, so how do you have a $50 billion market value at the same time that you're losing money? And he's like, oh, because we're getting closer to making money. And it's like, that's a crazy concept. But if he didn't have those people investing along the way, right, there would be no Amazon. And so we need those people to come up with solutions. We need people that can help them to evaluate their idea and to bring it to market. But we also need people that can say, "Hey, I think your timing on your market is wrong." And you can either run this company for 10 years, and for the first 9, you're going to do nothing with it because the market is not listening or is not ready for this product. But then maybe the 10th year, you'll do great. Or you can say, why don't you focus your area on something correlated to this product, get the market kind of prepared for whatever it is that you're trying to solve, and then bring out the big guns.
Wonderful. There is much to learn from you, Christopher, about leadership, about scaling up, about business growth. And I'm sure a lot of people, especially small businesses, startups, would like to connect with you and learn more from you, about all the businesses that you are
Yeah.
doing, and also Vantage Surgical Solutions. So, for all those people, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to get to me through LinkedIn. That's probably the best. We're getting ready to roll out a podcast in January. It's faithful.buzzsprout.com. And so if you want to connect there, it also links back to my LinkedIn. You can go to my LinkedIn page. I'd love to have lots of people connect, especially entrepreneurs. That's kind of my world. What you didn't hear about my background is that I became a C-suite employee of Vantage Surgical Solutions in January of 2012. I started buying the business, and then I was part of the ownership structure that transacted with private equity. They brought in a CEO over the top of me, even being the entrepreneur, because they wanted to have somebody with experience running portfolio companies, and then realized that that wasn't the right solution for the organization, and ultimately put me back in charge of our company. I love helping people. I don't do this for business. So like I do sit on boards. I'm the vice chair of the bank. I love the bank. But as far as like I'm not a consultant. So if they have questions or whatever, they can feel free to ask me via message or through LinkedIn. I'm glad to help anybody that I can. I don't do it for business though. I do take some stakes in small businesses at times. And so if they want to have me as a board of advisor or something like that, I would be glad to participate at that level. But yeah, that's the best way is to get me through LinkedIn.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.